Hello and welcome. My name is Doug Shadell, and I'm the State Director for AARP Washington. And it's my pleasure to be your host today for the fourth in a series of 6 events we're calling Tip-Offs to Rip-Offs. This is a statewide program AARP Washington is sponsoring in conjunction with the State Attorney General's Office, with BECU, and with a number of other partners we'll be introducing later. You know, fraud has always been around in the United States, but the COVID crisis has really exacerbated it. There's been a 45% increase in fraud reports just in the year 2000, and we are here to try and give you some tools to keep yourself safe, keep your neighbors safe, and try and rid the state of Washington of this problem. You know, AARP Washington for many years has been working on fraud prevention. We've done research and videos and educational seminars like this one, and all of that will be here today. What I'm especially excited about, though, today, this is our first statewide event. We've been doing events in local areas like Wenatchee and Bellingham, Spokane. Today is a statewide event, and so it's completely appropriate, and I'm thrilled to have Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson as our keynote speaker, our leadoff speaker today. And you'll hear from Bob in a moment. I have the pleasure of introducing him. But another thing I'm really excited about this year, for the first time, we're partnering with a company called Nomorobo, which is a robocall blocking company. May or may not have heard of Nomorobo. By the end of today, you will have heard of them. And what they do is provide software that blocks those nasty robocalls that everybody is tired of. And but in addition to blocking those calls, they are also a great source of information, as you will see, about the current threats coming into your community in real time. They have provided us with real-time data of the most common scam calls coming into any community in the state of Washington. And you'll hear from, and we're really fortunate to have the CEO of Nomorobo, Aaron Foss, here today to talk about that and talk about our partnership with them. And then finally, I'm going to give a presentation I'm excited about. This is a presentation like we've never done before, and it features a sort of an internet vigilante named Jim Browning. And if you've never heard of Jim Browning, again, by the end of today, you will. He has got a YouTube page. He infiltrates scammer boiler rooms and watches what they do. And you're going to see some of those videos at the end of the presentation today. We're going to take you inside the scammers' computers in India and watch how they practice their craft. It's just amazing video. At the end of our presentation, so during these 3 presentations, we'd appreciate it if you'd hold your questions, but write them down. There's the Q&A box, which you can write them into, because at the end, our own Ann O'Callahan, who is one of our lead volunteers and fraud fighter speakers, will be facilitating a panel discussion with the speakers. Bob's going to have to leave, but Mina Shaheen, who is one of his assistant AGs who focuses in this area of robocall prosecution, will be with us to answer questions. So that's kind of the lineup for today. And I'm really thrilled that so many people have signed up. We had over 1,500 people signing up for this session today. So it's one of the more popular ones we've ever had. And right now, without further ado, let me introduce Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Bob is a longtime friend of AARP Washington, and as we partner together in this work to help older people and all consumers avoid fraud. But Bob does more than just talk about it and give speeches. Under his leadership, and I've watched this very closely, I used to work in the AG's office, since 2012, he has turned their consumer protection unit into one of the most aggressive prosecution units protecting consumers in the entire nation. And they've filed hundreds of cases trying to stop every scam they could see. And you may not realize this, but in 2017, Bob was named as one of the top 100 most influential persons by Time magazine. And that may have had something to do with some of the other people he was suing. I'll let him talk about that if he wants to. But when it comes to protecting Washington consumers from fraud, protecting the Constitution, we have no more fearless advocate than Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Bob, welcome to the program.
Doug, it's so great to see you. Thanks so much for that very kind introduction. And of course, I wish we were in person on our tours around the state. But to your point, Doug, you actually mentioned how one advantage of this type of interaction is we can do it statewide and have folks from all around the state join in. So it's wonderful that so many folks have joined us. Thanks to all of you. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe during this really challenging time. And Doug, I just want to say to you and your team, I think the folks who are on this meeting know, how critical AARP has been in protecting individuals across our state in so many different ways. And AARP has just been such a huge and important partner for my office and advocates and Washingtonians all around the state. So thanks, Doug, for your work, and looking forward to sometime, hopefully before too long, being back in person for these events where it's nice to see folks in person. And so, hey, what I was going to do is talk a little bit about the work in our office related to robocalls, how, frankly, you can help us do this work to protect Washingtonians, and maybe get an example of some cases we have brought to try and address a different kind of real challenge we had, which is these robocalls. And I think I saw the first comment I saw, Doug, in the chat was from, I think it was from Betty, saying, it's crazy how many robocalls she gets. And I know you're not alone, Betty. We all get them. I think progress is being made, and you're going to hear some options for how to address those later on. But let me first start by just saying the AG's office, as Doug started to refer to, we're really the people's law firm. We're there for you to help on any consumer issue that you may have, including robocalls. And so my office receives about 20,000 consumer complaints a year. So that's a lot. We respond to all of them. And a number of them are related to the subject we have today, which is, of course, robocalls. And I mentioned those complaints because it was exactly those complaints, Doug, which led to a lawsuit we filed related to robocalls. There's a company based out of Vancouver, Washington. They're called U.S. Air Ducts. Their business, so to speak, was air ducts and cleaning up air ducts. And this company bombarded Washingtonians with millions and millions and millions of robocalls. It was so bad there were hundreds of Washingtonians who got more than 100 phone calls from just this one company based here in Washington state. We received complaints, and so we followed up on those complaints. Perhaps not surprisingly, not only were they acting illegally and violating state law, Washington state has its own anti-robocall statute that my team, we can enforce on behalf of the people. And so perhaps not surprisingly, this company was violating that state statute and engaging in robocalls, but also the sale they were trying to make to Washingtonians related to their business was also a scam. It was sort of a double hit, so to speak. So we filed a lawsuit against them. Doug mentioned we have a large consumer protection team. You're going to hear from one of my attorneys later on in the Q&A section. Her name's Mina, and Mina worked on this case. And this case, we took this company to court, and a judge here in Washington state ordered this company to pay millions of dollars in civil penalties for their illegal conduct. So the judge held a number of things, but a couple of years to give you a sense of it, that this company used an auto dialer to make calls in violation of our state law. They deceived Washingtonians by disguising their caller IDs to mislead them as to who was calling, to make it look like it was someone they're familiar with or from their own area code, for example. And they made millions of these robocalls to hundreds of thousands of Washingtonian who had, by the way, signed up for the federal Do Not Call registry. And that's a violation of our state law. When you sign up for that federal Do Not Call registry, if you've signed up and you're still getting those robocalls, you need to let my team know. So that's one example of the kind of case that we can bring. And that penalty is a big penalty for that company. We think it sends a message to entities here in our state who engage in that type of practice. But again, what I want to emphasize here, Doug, is that we were only able to bring that case because Washingtonians contacted my office. And if you have information about robocalls you want to share on our website, you can file a complaint. We also have a 1-800 number, Doug, that I'm going to pass along to folks. It's 1-800-551-4636. And I'll read that one more time, 1-800-551-4636. The other point I just want to make briefly, Doug, and then I want to keep this short because you've got more important speakers than me who know a lot more about this issue. But what I want folks to also know on this call is that attorneys general across the country are working in a bipartisan fashion to try and address this issue, to advocate for changes in federal law that would help all of you deal with these robocalls. And so I've joined with literally every single attorney general to ask the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, as just one example, to close a loophole. There's a loophole in federal law that allows smaller telecom companies to continue bombarding folks like Betty and others who are chiming on the chat to bombard you with these robocalls. So this, without going too much into detail, Congress had passed a law that really directs telecom companies to take steps to limit robocalls, but they carved out a loophole for, relatively speaking, smaller companies. That's not good enough. There should not be that exception. It gives those smaller companies a lot more time, years, to come into compliance. So if you want to take a specific action to help with the robocalls that you have to deal with, write to your congressional delegation, write to your member of Congress, wherever you are in Washington State, write to your U.S. senators, write to them and ask for action to be taken to address robocalls and to close that loophole, which will make a big difference in addressing this going forward. And maybe the last thing will say briefly, Doug, is, and you mentioned this earlier, we have seen a spike in consumer complaints of all kinds during this pandemic. And that is true when it comes to robocalls. We see all kinds of scams related to federal stimulus checks, for example. I've received text messages on my phone from scammers related to federal stimulus checks. And so, I just want to make sure that folks are being extra cautious right now. We always see in our consumer protection division, when there's a natural disaster or right now a pandemic going on, we see an uptick in complaints and we see an uptick in bad actors trying to scam hardworking Washingtonians from their hard-earned dollars. So whether it's a pandemic or not, be skeptical when you get these calls or you get these texts or you get these emails. Don't click on those links. Those can be malicious. Don't provide your personal information to unknown sources. And I know that may sound so logical to everybody and that people may say, I would never do that. But Doug, as you know, and your team knows and my team knows, we see folks who afterwards say, how did I do that? How did I get tricked by that? But these scammers will use sophisticated means to trick you into thinking they're legitimate. It happens to so many Washingtonians. And so I just really urge folks to be cautious. And again, just to conclude, Doug, by saying my team is here to help you with these issues. And virtually all the cases that Doug referred to that my consumer protection team brings, Mina, who you'll be hearing from later on, that she brings on behalf of the people, those come from Washingtonians who call our office, who write to our office, who provide information about companies like that air duct company in Vancouver. And then my team can follow up on those complaints, bring investigations, get documents from the entity we're investigating, and bring a lawsuit, and then get money back to Washingtonians. So it's work we're really proud to do, but it's very dependent upon Washingtonians to help us out. So just to wrap up, Doug, I just want to say how much it's just really a joy to be on. It's great to see you on. And it was a good excuse to put a suit back on and come down to my office, which I'm mostly working from home these days, as most people are. But it's really great to be a part of this program. Again, Mina from my consumer protection team will be on for the Q&A later on. She knows a ton about this, so I really encourage you to ask questions. She was involved in that lawsuit I mentioned earlier and is more than happy to take any questions you have. Doug, thank you so much. Hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, and hope you all have a great day.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate those comments. And you heard him say several times throughout his presentation that he really wants us to report these things. A lot of times people say, well, I get these robocalls, but nothing's going to happen if I report it. That isn't true with the Washington AG's office. They can file a lawsuit based on one phone call and have before. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And Bob's and his tireless staff working to hunt these people down. They really will follow up on it. So thank you, Bob, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to talk to us today. Well, we have a huge number of viewers today. We're going to move on now to our next presentation. Really excited to introduce Aaron Foss. I met Aaron about 3 or 4 years ago, just sort of accidentally. We were connected by a producer that I had worked with before. And he may not tell you this story, but the way he got started is in 2013. This RoboDial thing has been going on for a long time. And in 2013, the Federal Trade Commission issued a challenge to technology people, and they were going to award a $50,000 award to the person who could come up with the best idea for how to stop robocalls. And Aaron's idea won. I'll let him tell you how he does it. But that started his company. And he'll tell you a little bit about the company, but what I'm most excited about is his willingness to share data with us. So much of the time, we are playing catch up. We are issuing press release about something that happened 3 years ago or even 2 months ago. But with this Nomorobo partnership, we have the potential to warn people about threats that are happening right now in your neighborhood. And that's some of what Aaron's going to talk about. He's a great guy, great speaker. Aaron, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Doug.
There he
really
is.
Appreciate being here. I'm in such even Attorney General Ferguson, everybody that's on this panel. I feel privileged to be here to bring kind of like the knowledge that I have to Washingtonians everywhere. So I'm actually based out in New York, so I don't think we could be any further away. But I think we're all very close when it comes to talking about the problem of illegal robocalls. So. Yeah, as Doug was mentioning, I am the founder and CEO of Nomorobo. We stop robocalls, spam texts, all that. We've been actually in business for 8 years. As Doug mentioned, we got our start when I won the FTC's robocall challenge. And so many people say to me, oh, hey, like, did you hate all the robocallers so much and you were just, incentivized, you had to go and solve it? No. Before the FTC had their competition, I didn't even know what a robocall was. I don't have a landline. The problem wasn't as out of control as it is today, but I really like solving big problems in interesting ways. If you ask me how I define myself, I'm kind of like a startup guy. This is actually my 5th company. My last one was actually acquired by Groupon in 2013. That was actually a travel company. I had another company that was a medical software company, another company that was in the restaurant industry. So no matter what the problem is, what I really like to do is solve it in big problems in unique ways. And there is no bigger problem right now than robocalls. As Doug mentioned, literally there's one of the contractors here in my house, came in this morning and we just got talking how he keeps on getting scammed from the Google scam. He got one from Chase that they were asking, somebody was asking to transfer $5,000. Actually a neighbor, she just actually got scammed out of $1,500 from the fake Amazon callers. And just like what AG Ferguson said, she felt so much shame. How could she have fallen for that? How could she have been so stupid? This has nothing to do with intelligence or anything like that. These are criminals. These are psychopaths, right? They know what they're doing and they know how to do a really good job at it. So to give you some background on what we do, we've already stopped over 2.25 billion robocalls. Our block list is actually over 4 million known robocallers, and we're adding over 1,500 new numbers every single day. Because this is the number one thing. When you talk about robocalls, you're going to hear 2 things, right? I block it and they call with new numbers every single day. Or they'll say things like, it comes from a neighbor number, neighbor spoofing, where it's looks like it's coming from the person down the street, or it's coming from a local school, hospital, business, or whatever. These are known tricks that the robocallers use. And as Doug mentioned, Nomorobo is in a very unique spot. We're not a phone carrier, right? The phone carriers can't go and analyze the content of the calls, right? They have to rely on user reports, stuff from the government and things. What we're actually able to do is see volumetrics wise on the call side, right? Actually, I can kind of skip over. Maybe I should have flipped these around, right? We're currently available on all major VoIP carriers in the United States on the landline side. We also have a mobile app on iOS and Android. And what's really kind of cool about our technology, as Doug was saying, is that we built what's called a honeypot, meaning we have 350,000 phone lines that belong to us that we're able to watch as kind of an early warning system. And we're also able to record them, transcribe them, and we're going to be playing some of those recordings. But it gives us a very interesting view into what is happening right now. We can go and do the content analysis. We can go and correlate that back with those patterns. We can go and look at user reports. And we have, of course, like every other company, right, machine learning, AI that goes and does classification. Ultimately, what this means for the consumer, though, is that the bad calls stay out and the good calls get through, because not all robocalls are bad, right? Especially now, COVID vaccination messages, school closings, police, fire, right? All the tornado warnings, anything like that. Those have to be pushed through. And what's really kind of the sad part about where we are, because of these illegal robocallers, nobody trusts the phone system anymore. If you see a number that you don't recognize, you're just not going to pick it up. And most of the time, it's trying to scam you out of something. Remember back in the day, right, when that phone rang, even if you were eating dinner, you would drop everything. It was somebody you wanted to talk up to. Nowadays, not it. So that's what we're hoping to kind of get back to. So we ran some data specifically, as Doug had mentioned. We've done these for a lot of the local cities in Washington. Now, since we're kind of like coming out to a little bit broader, I ran all the data. This is for the first 3 weeks. This is hot off the press as of a day or two ago. But so the top robocalls that are coming into Washington, you can kind of see these, and we're going to have a bunch of audio for the samples. But if we just kind of look at it, fake police charities. These are really tough because they masquerade as a real PAC. Some of them have actually gone through all of the paperwork to file as a real political action committee. And for anybody who's well-versed in the TCPA, there are two carve-outs. One is for charities to be able to robocall, and one is for politicians to be able to robocall. So leave it to the politicians to, do as I say, not as I do. But these fake police charities, right? Everybody wants to go and support police, fire, and everything. And when they hear a call that comes in, they're going to be more likely to do it. This has been going on for years. It's going on because it works. An interesting one here is that the mortgage robocalls have been popping up in Washington. This also makes a lot of sense, right? Housing prices are off the charts. So the robocallers are going to go and change their tactics to what's popular right now, right? When the pandemic first started and the stock market kind of tanked, they weren't pushing these kinds of things, right? Number 3, right behind it, is real estate scams. Amazon phishing, that's a nationwide one. As I said, a neighbor down the street, she's almost, I think she's in her late 80s, got hooked by that one. Fake Social Security, home improvement. Again, now that people have, kind of the world is opening back up, this has been climbing the charts. Debt reduction. Number 8 is really interesting, and I got to give Doug and AARP a big shout out here. If you notice that it's cardiac testing and Medicare, it's Mary, which we're going to listen to. AARP and Nomorobo, we were the first ones to be finding these fake Medicare scammers. And at that point, it was called BECU. And then literally as soon as AARP put out the message about BECU, you can literally watch the data. They stopped using BECU and they switched over to the new message, which we'll listen to. Fake cancer and then some lotteries. So why don't we just get to the kind of the main event here? We're going to listen to some of the audio from these robocalls. And I know we've heard them all and everything. They're changing daily. And this is what it's actually legitimately listening to. This is as of hours ago of what it is. So if you can play the first audio, please.
Hello, this is John with Back Blue Lives PAC. As you know, our police officers are being defunded, demoralized, and disrespected. And they put their lives on the line every day without the support of many politicians. It's time to say enough is enough. The organization is having its fundraising drive to support lawmakers who will stand with our brave men and women in blue. So can you help us protect our police officers' lives and rights with a one-time donation for the drive?
Right. So this is obviously pulling some politically charged kinds of things. If you notice their name, right, Back Blue Lives, PAC. We haven't dug into it. I don't even know if this is actually a legitimate one or not. If anybody is calling you on the phone to ask for donations, do not give them money. Very simple. They are most probably not legitimate. And really, even if they are, you know what, hang up, look them up, and then donate to the charities where your money will actually go to help police, cancer, families, those kinds of things. So let's talk about the mortgage one. I think that this one's really interesting because it does sound very legitimate if you listen, and it's very easy to see how someone could get victimized and get tricked by this message. So if we can just play this audio, that would be great.
Hey, this is Josh calling again from the Mortgage Savings Center. I know that we've spoken before. I wanted to reach out. Rates did go up for several months, but they have dropped again dramatically this week. And I really want to talk to you so we can make sure if you haven't refinanced yet that you do take advantage of these low rates. Even if you're looking to get cash out or your credit's not great, or you have a hard time documenting your income, we have programs for you. We can definitely help, and we can save you some money. Give me a call as soon as you can. Talk to you soon.
This one's super interesting. It should remind everybody of 2008, right? But listen to the way we have programs, hard time documenting your income. If you're looking to get cash out, credit is not great. Look at who they're trying to take advantage of, right? These are people that are potentially unemployed because of the pandemic, people that are of lower socioeconomic status. These guys, there's a special place reserved in the afterworld for people like this. And if you notice, they're very conversational. This is Josh calling again from the Mortgage Savings Center. We hear so many times that when we say, well, I don't even remember who they said, right? Your brain is going to put, especially if you have talked to a mortgage, you've talked to your bank, a Mortgage Savings Center, you couldn't get more generic than that. And you might think, if you were having problems with your monthly payments or something, you called Chase or Bank of America or something, and they said, it's the Mortgage Savings Center, right? It's very obvious, and there is no shame in how people are getting taken advantage. It's our job to get the word out and to use technology to prevent these. This is fun. This is a real estate scam. We're just going to jump right into it. And this one's actually not a pre-recorded one. There is actually a live person. So there are robocalls that aren't just recorded messages. But we're going to have a little fun with this. If you can play the first real estate one.
This is Alex. I'm trying to reach you regarding your property in Washington. See if you have any thoughts on selling it in the near future.
So the first part is you can hear it's an actual live person. Reach you regarding your property in Washington, right? So this is a number that they called into our honeypot. These numbers have been out of service for a while, but they must have been calling a Washington area code. They tailor it, right? So Alex is just calling, and he calls a Washington number, he's going to say Washington. He calls a New York area code, he's going to say New York. And look how generic it is regarding your property in Washington, to see if you have any thoughts on selling it in the future. Right? That sounds pretty innocuous. You're going to get into a whole conversation. You're going to get down a rabbit hole. You're going to get scammed. Literally, the next day, right? This is a different phone number that he came from. So the first one was a 425 number. Now he's calling from 253. So let's play the second, Alex.
Hello, this is Alex. I'm trying to reach you regarding your property in Washington. If you'd consider selling in the near future.
It's a little bit of a weird transcription, right? But Alex just keeps on trying. And the reason we don't know why he's so hard up on buying this real estate, right? A lot of these call centers also have people that don't have a lot of options for jobs, right? These are people who are, they don't have higher degrees. We actually tracked down with with Como actually in Seattle, a call center in Florida that actually was employing people from a work release program. So this is the way they were trying to get, back on the right track, and they were being hired by unscrupulous telemarketers to go and make these kinds of calls. So just kind of interesting, even if it's not a pre-recorded message, that sounds like a regular guy. He knows it's in Washington. Don't answer it. Don't get scammed. We have two final ones here. This one, is a more generic real estate one. So again, Alex knows that you're in Washington, but listen to the wording. This is just going to get blasted out across the United States. And again, specifically, it's coming to Washington because property values are high. There's a lot of people, and it's kind of obvious. It's a victim-rich area.
Hey, I'm real sorry I missed you. Reason we called is because we're looking to buy a couple of properties there in your city. So if you have a house or if you have a vacant lot or property that you're looking to sell, please give us a call back. We'd love to make you an offer. Thanks a lot.
Same deal with these. And if you see, this one actually kind of detected that an answering machine had answered, right? And it left a message. So this is actually, and it's weird. You think, they want to get people right on there. But nowadays, you want to get a voicemail like that, you're going to go and listen to it. If you are, I'm sorry I missed you. Reason to call because we're looking to buy a couple of properties in your city, right? Fill in the blank. Must be. That must have been the guy that I called. Whatever. You're going to go and get them. You're going to call them back and then again, go down a rabbit hole. Worst case, they're going to be giving you, they will buy your property, but for pennies on the dollar, or they're house flippers. You just don't want to get in. If somebody's calling you to buy your house like this, just don't even bother. Find some reputable companies and call them directly. And the last one we have is our good friend from Medicare. And as I mentioned before, again, thanks to Doug's tireless working, AARP amplifying this, we killed Mary, right? Mary used to talk how she was from Medicare and these, it was cancer screenings. As soon as AARP had that story, literally we watched it. They tried a couple of different names. They tried some female voices, some male voices, and apparently Mary won, and they changed it now to this cardiac screening. And this is literally hot off the presses because I don't know, if AARP hadn't done such a great job, BECU might still be pushing it. Now we are trying to, make them run and try harder. So if we can listen to Mary, there's a couple of interesting pieces here.
Hi, this is Mary from Cardio Medcare. I'm your local patient advocate. Currently, you're labeled eligible to get a cardiovascular screening test through your insurance that will help in early detection and prevention of complications and avert any resultant heart damage. If you do not act soon, we will label you ineligible for this benefit. To get more information about your screening test, please press 1 now.
So there's a couple of things here. First off, Cardio Medicare. What is that? Nothing. It doesn't exist. They made it up. A local patient advocate, right? Those two things. And obviously you can see who they're aiming it for, right? They're not aiming this at millennials. They're not aiming at this. They're calling landlines with this one. They're aiming it at people that are older, that have Medicare. They're trying to trick and take advantage of older folks, specifically in Washington. Look, currently you're labeled eligible, right? Well, that's, if I'm talking, I'm eligible for some of the cardiovascular screening test. Older people are getting calls and from their doctors all the time. Hey, you need to get this test. It's obvious why they're doing it this way. Test through your insurance. Oh, okay. So I don't have to pay for it. It will help in early detection and prevention of complications and avert any resultant heart damage. You call up somebody and say, oh, it's free. It's through your insurance. Do you want to have a heart attack? Right? Who's going to answer yes to that? So that's the fine. Okay. Oh, I'm interested. Now they put the fear on. If you don't act soon, we'll label you ineligible for this benefit. Oh, I don't want to be ineligible. Oh, I better get more information. Press 1 right there, or call us back. And they left this number. This number was out of service within, a day, within hours of it. They just need that in that small window. You think it is, you call it up, and then you get pushed through the scam where they get your Medicare number, and then they push through some fraud on that one. And the bottom one, right? If you wish to opt out from future calls, press 9. Don't push 9, right? Now you've marked yourself as somebody as an active phone. They don't care about the do not call list. They don't have internal do not call lists. So that's what we're dealing with. And these guys are really good at what they do. So hopefully we have some time for a Q&A at the end, but that is literally what's going on with the robocall problem right in your backyard, right in Washington. I'll turn it back over to Doug now.
Well, thank you, Aaron. That was very enlightening. And boy, there's a lot of themes there that I think I'm going to hit on in the next topic we're going to talk on. But just off the top of my head, the whole thing you mentioned about fear. I mean, who isn't in a state of heightened anxiety right now during this global pandemic? And leave it to the con artists to prey on that anxiety and fear, especially about our health. And so that last one is particularly onerous. And you mentioned that we tracked down BECU in South Florida and turned them into the CMS. I took some of those calls. I may or may not have taken some of those calls. And, one of the things, I mentioned this to Aaron before, I asked them was, shouldn't I be talking to my own doctor before I get one of these genetic tests? And every time I asked that, they would say, oh, no, your doctor doesn't give this kind of test. Besides, it's COVID and they can't do it. It's got to be self-admitted, completely crazy. So thank you, Aaron, for keeping us up to the minute on that. And we'll be talking at the end of the program today about our website where Aaron has provided this data. He's giving us, I think it's weekly reports now on every local municipality in the state of, well, at least the top 10 cities. And we'll hopefully get to the point where we can have every single community in the state updated. Well, let's change gears now and go into a little bit of a deeper dive. Aaron, Attorney General Ferguson kind of gave you here's what's happening in our office, here's who we're prosecuting. Aaron kind of gave you the top 10 calls coming into Washington. I want to focus in on one particular type of scam just because I think it's a way to illustrate just all the psychological tactics that are used and in a way that nobody's really ever seen before. Is it okay for me to advance?
Yeah, actually.
Okay. So this is called Tip-Offs to Rip-Offs, How to Spot a Con. I just want to give credit where credit is due. Bruce Carlson, who's sitting right next to me here, who works for AARP Washington, and Doug Irvine were instrumental in some of the video and audio. The video in particular that you're about to see is just going to blow your mind. And so I wanted to give credit to those two for producing those pieces of this presentation. And what I'm going to talk about, as you've heard from the previous two speakers, fraud's on the rise. That could be due to COVID. It could be due to just the speed of technology, but it definitely is on the rise, which is why we're spending so much time trying to prevent it. Then we're going to introduce you to Jim Browning, who is this undercover hacker who has found a very unique way to sort of tell the fraud story, and you're going to see his work in a minute. We're going to do a deep dive into the tech support scams. This is there's something wrong with your computer, but we can help you fix it kind of thing. And then just some tips at the end. Then we'll get into your questions. Hopefully you've generated or had some questions in the first two presentations. If not, please write them down. Let us know so we can, when Ann is in charge, she can sort through those and ask our panel at the end, including our assistant AG from the AG's office. I'm really thrilled, Mina, who will join us. So here's data from the Federal Trade Commission. And what this shows is basically 20 years of fraud complaints coming in. All the AGs give their complaints to the Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission gets complaints. AARP's helpline also submits. So this is a good snapshot of what's going on. And you can see at the very right here that there has been a 45% increase in 2020 since the pandemic started. A 45% increase in the number of fraud complaints in the United States. That is staggering growth. And in the state of Washington, you can see that between 2019 and 2020, and again, this is Federal Trade Commission, that the losses are more than doubled. That's just the actual money lost to fraud in just 1 year. Well, why is that? What is the techniques? What are the common ones? And the list we've gotten from Aaron in the past, one of the top scams over this period of time has been what we call computer scams or tech support scams. And I stumbled onto this guy, Jim Browning, at the very beginning of the pandemic, saw his YouTube page, which, as you can see, has now that's old news. He's got about, 3.5 million followers on this YouTube page. And I just couldn't stop watching it because he has figured out a way to get inside of the scammers' boiler rooms. And we're going to watch a video now that will just give you, it's about a 3 or 4 minute video that'll just give you an introduction to his work. Then I'm going to take you even deeper into the inside of the scammer's computer. Watch this.
The reason why I'm calling is, I don't know if you're aware, but the whole thing is a scam. I can see that the scammers still have access to your computer. This is the way their scam works.
He fights back against robocall scams and tracks frauds across the world.
Can you turn your computer off as soon as you possibly can, please?
He's not a detective, he's not a cybersecurity professional, but he is a tech-savvy engineer who's been turning the tables on robocallers and scammers.
I don't know how much you bought, but just stop right now.
$3,000. And then he took my $17,000 out of my account.
I'm going to try and find out exactly who they are. And eventually try to get something done about them.
He's known on YouTube as Jim Browning. There he posts videos of real-time tech support scams, refund scams, IRS scams, and many other techniques used to defraud people out of their money. On his YouTube channel, he turns the tables on scammers and exposes their methods, and has gained a worldwide following of more than 3 million subscribers. Yet for all the acclaim, the man is totally unknown. His name is not Jim Browning. Here's where he works, but we can't tell you where he is or show you his face, for obvious reasons. He's helped lead authorities to fraud boiler rooms, resulting in the takedown of major operations. The scammers would like nothing more than to expose him.
I work at home a fair bit. I mean, I'm in an office job normally, but sometimes I would be at home and I would be getting constant interrupts from these phone calls. I'm a network engineer, I'm a software engineer, I've worked with telecoms firms in the past, and I was thinking, if I can't do something about this, then who can?
Jim began engaging the telemarketers, trying to learn their tricks.
Are you in San Jose or not?
Definitely, sir.
Okay. Can you name me one restaurant in San Jose? How long have you been doing the scamming?
Sir, I'm not scamming you.
You've gone very quiet. Why would that be?
How can you define me that I'm a scammer?
Well, you've been lying to me the whole time.
He realized he could reverse engineer the scammers' methods and, using their own tools, see what was on their computers. He could see their cameras, too. He was literally inside their networks, and he began recording videos of their computer activity and their personal computer cameras and closed-circuit cameras inside the boiler rooms. He could now get a full picture of what was going on, one that had never been seen before.
It's really like a magician smoke and mirrors. If you have a look closely, you can see what's going on.
As he watched and listened, he became even more outraged as he observed scenes like this one, where a group of scammers gathered to laugh at a victim who's at the end of his rope.
Suffer from depression.
No, sir. Everything will be okay. Don't worry, okay?
Yes.
Now, promise me you won't cry again, okay?
He also intervenes when he can, preventing the transfer of money to the criminals.
Hello.
Hello, Annette. You are being scammed, okay? And this is not some random hacker. This is somebody trying to warn you not to move money. Banks will always say never move money because you're going to be scammed.
When he comes across a swindle happening in real time, he frantically searches for a phone number to call the potential victim, hoping he can persuade them not to follow the scammer's instructions to transfer money, buy gift cards, or mail cash wrapped in tinfoil.
Well, first we tried to transfer it. That didn't work last night, so I went and got cash. They want me to put it in a box and send it FedEx.
Please, please, please do not send cash to anyone. That is your own money. That's the nice thing about it. You can't help but feel kind of thrilled that you managed to actually stop a crime from happening. I always look at this as this could be my own relative, and it's certainly somebody else's relative, so why wouldn't I step in? I have to do it. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try to do something about it.
As his campaign to fight robocall scams and online fraud has grown, he's been featured in media around the world, on the BBC, CBS, the New York Times, Times of India, and our own AARP bulletin. He wants to expand the audience for his message to everyone who needs help.
It's a fascinating subject. The techniques that they use, the way that they manipulate people, although it's horrible to look at sometimes, nevertheless, it's actually quite an interesting subject when you get down to it.
What started as a hobby to get back at annoying phone calls has become a calling to educate everyone about these crimes.
I'm hoping that eventually the channel will bring enough awareness of scams that people will recognize them almost immediately. And even if they change the wording slightly, which they do, people will just recognize it and hang up on them.
You know what? This is ridiculous.
So there you have an overview of Jim's work, and now we want to take you into some of the stuff that he has shared with us to get even more in depth. We'll go back to the PowerPoint at this point. And let's see if I can advance my slides. Okay, so let's take a deep dive into the tech support thing, because Jim has really given us a front row seat, as I mentioned, or as the video described. He basically, in a nutshell, posed as an interested victim, right? And when they would say, well, in order to fix the problem you have, I got to get into your computer, he lets them into his computer, which is a virtual machine that's protected from his personal stuff. And he reverse engineers his way into their computer and installs software that allows him to tape record everything they're doing and watch everything they're doing. So he goes to work at his IT job during the day, and all these things are being recorded, comes home at night. And I spent about really the whole summer of 2020 calling him up at about 8 or 9 his time and watching these with him. And so we're going to take you on a little tour. Oh, I keep using those arrows. There we go. Okay, so the tech support scam basically has two main variations. One is the pop-up virus version, and the other is the refund scam. And I'm going to describe both. I'm going to go into more detail on the refund because we have an amazing story with audio of a victim being taken that you just will not be able to keep your eyes off of. But basically, the pop-up version, and some of you may have experienced this, you're minding your own business, you're on your computer, and all of a sudden something comes up on your screen that says, you've got a virus. There may even be a loud noise. It may even sound something like this.
Please call our support immediately. Important security message. Your computer has been locked up. Your IP address was used without your knowledge or consent to visit websites that contains identity theft virus. To unlock the computer, please call support immediately.
So, there you go. And you say, well, what should I do? Well, a lot of people, the answer there, by the way, just to cut to the chase, is if you turn your computer off, hold down the power button for 5 seconds and reboot your computer, that's likely to go away. It's just JavaScript that's been downloaded onto your computer because you were on a website that has some of that JavaScript on something you downloaded or something you opened. And 9 times out of 10, if you just reboot your computer, it will go away. But a lot of people don't know that. And so they call the number. And when they call the number, they get a boiler room, and these boiler room tactics, they start giving them a whole bunch of scare tactics about, yes, there's something wrong with your computer. They take you to this thing called an event log, which you see on your screen here. That is, every computer has a screen like this. It's a diagnostic screen that is used by technicians like Jim to find out what's going on. But it looks scary. There's nothing wrong with, every computer has this and doesn't necessarily have viruses on it. But here's what they say. They'll take you to this screen, and this is an actual recording where Jim was following this guy named Arjun, who was scamming people out of $400, $500, $1,000 in repairs that they didn't need. And he gets them to do that by taking them to this screen and scaring them.
These are all the bugs, or you can say malware, that has got into your computer, and they are responsible for compromising your computer security. You can see here, error, warning, error, and it says the critical one here. And these bugs, they are harmful for your other devices also, like your cell phone, your iPad that you have at your location.
So I was actually listening to this tape with Jim, and he was talking to a disabled veteran in Utah. And the guy was scared to death by the end of this conversation. He was pretty convinced that there was all this horrible stuff going on in his computer. Then he took him to another screen, this net stat screen. And you see the circle and the arrow there where it says 19. He tells them there are 19 hackers in your computer right now. That's not what that 19 means. That just means that's the number of connections you have to the internet on your computer right now. But he didn't know that. So he ends up, once he scared them, got these 3 things that he scared them, he's scared about, then he takes them to essentially a fake website. And the fake website looks exactly like Microsoft or exactly like some other well-known brand. It's not. It's just a scanned version of Microsoft. It's a fake Microsoft site. And he charges them $300, $500. Takes 20 minutes, but he's really not fixing anything because there's really nothing wrong. So it's clearly, Aaron talked about the use of fear. You don't want to have a heart attack. You better get this generic test. This whole thing is based on fear, a fear of the unknown, a lack of awareness of computers. And again, if you get one of those pop-ups, just shut down your computer and reboot, and that'll probably take care of the JavaScript that created it. Now, the refund scam is a little more intense because they're not satisfied with just $300, $500, although a lot of the calls they're making or people they're targeting already fell for the $300 fake virus thing. And the next victim we're going to talk about was in that category. In a nutshell, here's how this refund scam works. You get an email. It's either Amazon or somebody else saying you're owed a refund on software you might have bought. Basically, you're owed money. We're going to give you $400 or $500. So you call thinking that you could get a refund, and they say, oh, well, the fastest way to give you the refund is to let us into your computer. And by the way, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, anybody who wants to remotely access into your computer, if you did not initiate the contact, do not do that. And you'll see why if you haven't already. But to get the $400, we need access to your computer. And then through a series of manipulations, which I'm about to show you, they make it look like they deposited too much money into your account. Instead of depositing $200, they deposited $20,000, and now you owe them the difference. And again, Aaron said this, if you're standing on the outside of this transaction and you're not having your emotions manipulated and you're not in a fear state, you'd think, why would anybody fall for that? But it's precisely that state of anxiety and fear that causes people with PhDs, people with law degrees, all kinds of people to fall for these things. We're about to release a study this fall, and one of the findings is that victims of fraud experience twice as many stressful life events at the time of their victimization than others who were able to resist. And so this is partly why people fall for it. It's a huge risk variable. So who is the scammer? One of the things I want to say about the scammer, you will hear this guy, he is from Eastern India, from Calcutta, and a lot of the people that Jim had information on were from India, but not all scammers are Eastern Indian. I can assure you I've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years. There are plenty of Americans doing this. It just so happens that the case we're profiling here, this particular guy, and Jim was able to actually get the longitude and latitude coordinates of the Wi-Fi network that he was using when he called the victim to scam her. And so it's a neighborhood just outside of Kolkata, otherwise known as Calcutta. Who is the victim? Well, it's an older person living in Florida. I'm not going to give you the person's name or identifying information, obviously. He's quite vulnerable. He volunteers at an animal shelter. She's a college graduate, which kind of undermines the notion that these are all people who haven't been educated, right? A lot of people are college graduates who fall for these things. Previously lost money to a fake virus scam. And that's partly why they are attracted to the notion that maybe I'm owed a refund, because many of them have already been victimized. So here's how it starts. I'm just going to play this tape and we'll listen.
This is to inform you that we have renewed your antivirus security for the upcoming 1 year, and we have charged you $499.99, and within 24 hours you will see a charge from VTech Solution. If you want to cancel the subscription and want a refund, then please call on this number 1-786-687-5488. Cancellation should be done within the 48 hours upon receiving this confirmation call. Thank you. From VTech.
So there's VTech, and this is essentially what our victim responded to. She calls the number, and the guy's on the phone where they're saying, I can give you the refund number, but I'd like to get into your computer. That way you don't have to go to the bank or anything else. And they'll use one of these remote access programs. TeamViewer is a very common one for scammers to use, but there's also AnyDesk. There's a number of these different ones that they will use. That gives the scammer, lets them into your computer, which you should never do. And we'll start to see why here. I just want to give you a sense of how this starts. This actually, at this point, the scammer has been on the phone with Betty, not her real name, for quite a while, because it took a while for her to get him access. He just didn't quite understand how to do it. But once he's in, he starts out very polite, and it's all about building a relationship with the victim.
I'm going to refund you $399, right?
Right.
Just grab a pen and paper in your hand and write down the available balance, so that if I'll make a transaction in your account, you can easily check it from your end, how much is the increment in your balance.
And what he's doing there is he's setting it up so that she will know exactly the balance in her checking account, so that when he deposits money and makes it look like there's $20,000 extra dollars, she'll be able to see that difference. And here you'll see, this is an actual screenshot of what we're seeing and what the scammer is seeing, which is Betty's bank account. Now we've blanked out all the identifying information, but you can see that she's got $78,000 in there, right? And he's going to deposit money because of this refund thing. And he's gotten her to write down the amount so that she'll notice the difference. See that? And then the next step is he blankens her screen. He says to her, okay, my accountants are going to work on the transfer of the money. Your screen is going to go black right? And the reason he makes the screen go black is he's going to go in there and start manipulating the HTML code, the computer code that drives what she's going to see on her screen when they come back. But in the meantime, he is sweet talking her.
You're like my granny, do you know this?
Yes.
Like my grandmother.
Like a grandma.
She just passed away 2 years ago. I really miss her a lot. She was like one of my closest friends.
Oh.
I used to share each and everything with her.
I'm sorry.
That's a really important part of the scam here, because while he's manipulating the screen, he wants to establish the relationship of grandson to grandmother. Even, you know, you're just like my grandmother. Why? Because when he asks her to do things, she's not going to want to disappoint him. And that's something you see a lot with scammers in their manipulation. In the meantime, now you're seeing this screen here. He's going to go in, and I won't go into the details of how this is done, but it's apparently very easy to just change the numbers on the screen. It doesn't change the actual balance in your account, but if you let this guy into your bank account, he can go in and make it look like there's $20,000 extra in your bank account when really there isn't. You see that? So now it looks like there's 99,000 instead of 79,000 when he comes back. And so then what he does is he takes her to this screen that he's just made up, and he's going to have her say, I want you to enter the amount. $400 is what we owe, but we're going to do it $200 at a time. And let's see how he does this.
Please enter your refund amount. The refund amount should be $200, as I said to you. We will make the payment in part by part.
Okay, hold on. Oh.
Are you done, ma'am?
I put it in. Good.
You put it in? Are you done with it? Check everything. Is it correct? What happened?
Jesus. Oh, no, this is a mistake. Oh, I screwed up.
Jesus.
I screwed up.
What happened? The thing which I am seeing, are you seeing the same thing, ma'am? Are you seeing the refund amount over there? Oh,
refund amount, that was supposed to be, it was supposed to be a 200 in there. Oh, God almighty. I'm completely spent. You know what? Keep the frickin' money. I can't, this isn't worth it to me.
Now, the reason she sounds desperate there, what he's basically done is he has made it look like when she entered $200, she added, 2 zeros extra, but he actually was the one who did that. Now he's got her on the defensive and in a position to want to have her send him back money to refund him. But it's not that simple. He's got to go into this. He goes into this whole thing about, it's just an emotional arc. And it's so rare to hear this. I remember at the time when I was listening to this, I was telling Jim, I don't think anybody's ever really seen this in action, like the emotional manipulation. The other thing to remember is she's been on the phone now for 2 hours, and she hasn't eaten, and she herself had just experienced a lot of loss, so she's super vulnerable. And this is what he starts to do to convince her that she needs to, well, first of all, you see this, she comes back to the screen, and he's now manipulated her bank account screen so that it looks like that 20,000 has actually gone into her account. It hasn't. And if she had just, again, turned off her computer and turned it back on, it would go back to normal. There was no real change to her account, but it looks like it because he's in the machine able to make it look that way. Okay, so now let's listen to how he does this.
Ma'am, let me think once. My mind is totally blocked up. Please. I'm the only sole earning member of my family. There's no other person apart from me who earns for my family. And at this point of time, in this pandemic time, if I'm gonna lose my job in this way, I'll be really like, no other person in my family earns apart from me. And if I'll get terminated from the job, if I'll get fired from the job, the only option which will...
would you get fired? I screwed up. You didn't make a mistake. I did.
I understand that. I'm not putting the blame on you, but the company people will put pressure on me. They will put pressure on me that because of your carelessness, this has happened. They're going to kick me out of the job at the end of the day.
So you can see that he's just putting the heat on her. She's already saying, I'm the one who screwed up. He's convinced her that she's at fault for this. And she's then starting to say, what can I do? He's talking about how his family is going to go bankrupt.
I am begging in front of you, after Jesus, you will be the only life savior for me. After Jesus, Miss Bessie, would you be helping me in this kind of situation, ma'am, to get out of it? And please save my job, ma'am. If I'll not earn for my family will die due to hunger, due to starvation, or else they need to beg in front of people. Please,
yes, of course. I mean, what should I do? I mean, I can.
Feeling bad for you. You are also like my grandmother. Please, ma'am. Please. Just help me out in this situation. I need this much only from you. This is my company's money which has been there in your account. So if I'll not get the money, my company people will gonna go ahead and sue a case against me for the fraudulent activity like money laundering. They will file a case against me. So I'll be putting behind the bars for 7 years.
So what do you want me to do? Send you a check?
Give me just 1 minute to think about it. Let me calm down, have a glass of water. I'm really tense. I'm really nervous right now. And let me think about it, what to do in order to fix this problem.
So he's got her on the ropes, right? I mean, she is now at the point of saying, do you want me to just send you a check for $20,000? She has no defenses left. He's been on the phone for 2 hours. He's convinced her that she's at fault. And there's one more sort of thing he does before he asks for the money. Let's just hear this one last thing.
And you know that $20,000 is really a big amount.
Yeah.
Please, ma'am, you also, please don't cry, ma'am.
I know it is.
Please, I'm begging in front of you, don't cry, ma'am.
You know, I'm an honest
You're
person.
making me cry now. I'm getting attached to you. I'm getting emotional attached to you. I'm getting tears on my eyes right now. Please, you don't cry, ma'am. You help me. That will be the best gift I'll be ever getting in my life from anyone. Please, after Jesus, you are my life saver. Just
tell me how to help you. Please tell me how to help you.
Just wait.
So let's just remember what this is. This is a guy sitting in a park on a phone somewhere outside of Calcutta, trying to convince her to wire him money. She is completely on the rope. She's living in Florida by herself. And Jim is watching this, and I'm watching it with him. And he's starting to realize when he gets to this next screen that I'm about to show you, he's was unable to do a direct transfer. He had started to set it up, send the money to this bank account in India, couldn't make it work. I think because Jim may have contacted her bank, and he sometimes does that to try and intervene here. Regardless, they were not willing to do a transfer. So then he says, oh, what if we do a Zelle transfer? What if we do a money transfer? And so now he's trying to pitch her on that. And that's when Jim gets worried. Let's listen to his pitch about Zelle transfer, and then we'll see Jim come to the rescue here.
I got an option. Have you heard about Zelle transfer?
About what?
Zelle transfer?
No, I don't know what that is.
Wait, let me help you out in this situation. And please, ma'am, don't panic.
Mm-hmm.
Just have faith in yourself and in God as well. God is great. He's gonna fix each and every problem for both of us. We are son and daughter of Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ won't be seeing their son and daughter in like trouble.
Okay.
You sort of hear her calm down a little bit. He's invoking Jesus Christ and all this stuff. And you see on the screen here, he's trying to set up a transfer to a money mule in California for just $997. He's like, at this point, I'm just willing to get anything out of her. But that's when Jim gets really nervous because he might actually be able to pull that off. And so next thing we hear is Jim, he's been trying all this time to call her, right? But she's on the landline. He can't get through. He finally calls her cell phone, and this is what happens.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank goodness I've got through to you, because the person who was just calling you there is trying to run a scam.
Are you there?
And you need to hang up the landline if you're on the land, or that is the landline. If can you turn your computer off as soon as you possibly can, please?
Okay.
Okay, and I'll explain what's going on. Okay, sorry to alarm you, but If you don't turn your computer off, it's likely they'll steal money from you.
I screwed up.
It's okay.
I made a mistake. I put the wrong dollar amount in for a refund on my.
Okay, I can assure you, you didn't mess up. That is how their scam works. They make it look as if they put money into your account.
I did, though.
No, actually you didn't, and I'll explain why. And you can double check this with the bank. Okay, it's a scam. Is the long and short of it.
All right.
So a couple of things you notice here is, first of all, she started complying with Jim out of the blue as soon as he called too, right? Which just shows her vulnerability. But even at the end there, where some person is trying to intervene and save her, she's still convinced that she screwed up and made a mistake and was going to go through with it, but for the intervention. In the end, she hung up the phone. You heard there also when Jim was calling, the scammer is still trying to get a hold of her, and he kept calling her after she hung up, but she was wise to the scam at that point. So this is just an example of the emotional manipulation, the extent to which these situations are happening in silence all across the world, really, because the robodial technology allows people to cast such a broad net that they find a fewer subset of people who are vulnerable, who fall for this. And the thing I wanted to just close with, and then we're going to go to the Q&A here in a bit, is he sounded really nice, didn't he? I mean, everything was about, you sound like my grandmother. I'm going to help you out. Don't worry about it. It's you and me and Jesus and so forth. But the next day, Jim was recording another person, and he recorded a person once who was really not as cooperative. This tape you're about to hear was another scammer who called a woman in Brooklyn, New York, who was not having it. And she was tough on him. And he got really mad. And this is what happens when you say no.
It was your mistake. It was not our mistake, okay? Okay, now see your account. Your account has got suspended. Now, whatever the money is in there, I'm just going to simply donate this money to the charity in the United States right now. And now, you can call the FBI, you can call the Better Business Bureau, you can call wherever you want to go. But by the time you go to the police, by the time you go to anywhere, no one in this world can get you back the single penny. I'm just giving you one chance. Either are you going to get my money back right now, or else forget about your money and forget about your computer. Simple as that. What do you want me to do? Just tell me now.
Not so nice now, right? And part of the reason they can use that is that if you can manipulate the HTML code, manipulate what you see in your own bank account, a lot of times what they'll do is if they get resistance, they'll turn they'll make it look like they've taken all the money out of your account. They haven't. If you rebooted, it would come back. But a lot of the folks don't know that, and they think they've taken all the money. And that was the case here. Jim also, the next day, on the person you heard when we went through the whole scenario, realized that there was someone in his computer. And so he sent a text to Jim. Are you there, Mother Blank? I know you are in my computer. Come and catch me, Mother Blank. Again, that was the same guy. That was the nice guy who was talking about Jesus and everything. And then he finds out that Jim's watching him, and he starts swearing at him. These are not nice people. They are criminals, and they're dangerous, and they're very good at manipulating. This is a little cartoon. When I think of Jim Browning, I think of this. I got scammed by the person I was trying to scam. Anyway, Jim Browning, as we mentioned before, has this YouTube site. We did a story in the AARP Bulletin, if you're an AARP member, where you can read about just a blow-by-blow of a couple more scenarios like the one we were just describing. It's just an incredible story. And a lot of these vigilantes on the internet are just jokesters. They press fart machines, and they're just trying to entertain. Jim is like an assassin. He is trying to actually put these people out of business. He's filed over 100 reports with police agencies, sending them these videos, which you just saw, and it has led to some prosecutions. Again, these are some tips that go without saying. You never know who's calling. Don't rely on caller ID. Consider getting a call blocking service. And Aaron's heard me say this before. I'm agnostic about which one. There's a number of different call blocking services. But just to stop the flow of this crap coming into your phone, it's probably worth doing. And when we survey people, only about what, 25 or 30% of phone users have any kind of blocking service. So there's still a lot of us who are putting up with it. And if someone calls and says there's something wrong with your computer, the best thing you can do is to just not respond. If you get one of those pop-ups, press the power button down for 5 seconds and reboot. Hopefully the JavaScript will go away. And as Attorney General Ferguson said, you really should report these to the AG's office, and we'll talk more about that hopefully during the Q&A session. The AARP has a helpline that you can call where volunteers staff this line, and many of them are very familiar with how to talk to victims and are experts at fraud and identifying whether you've been scammed or not, or if the call you got is a scam. So I would encourage you to call that number. And this website has current information fueled by Nomorobo and our own staff about all of the different robocalls coming into, I think it's 10 cities now that we're updating on a regular basis around the state of Washington. So I'd really encourage you to go there and look up what's happening in your community. And now I think we're ready for the Q&A section, and I'm hoping that I can get my colleague, Ann, to come on. Are you there, Ann?
I absolutely am, Doug. Thank you so much. And don't go away yourself, along with Doug on our Q&A panel. We want to welcome back Aaron Foss from Nomorobo and bring in Assistant Attorney General Mina Shaheen, whom Doug mentioned earlier as a key member of the AG's Consumer Protection Division. Thank you, Aaron and Mina, for making yourself available to answer questions from our audience today. And we've received so many questions. The program is scheduled to end at 11:30, but we have been given the green light to go over another 15 minutes if we need to, so we can answer as many questions as possible. This is a rare opportunity to have these subject matter experts all together here, and we don't want you to miss anything. So please don't worry if you have to leave at 11:30. You will receive a follow-up email after the event with a full video recording of the presentation, including this Q&A. So you'll be able to catch up on anything you missed. So let's dive right in. Our first question, Mina, this is for you. Dennis asks, some of the unwanted calls I'm receiving on my home phone line come from in-state. When I remind the caller that I'm on the do not call list, they scoff and basically say, catch me if you can. What can we do to put more bite in the do not call list?
That is a very good question. I was hoping someone would ask about that. A lot of people do ask, so, my name is on the do not call list, why am I still getting calls? And I think first it's two parts. Is understand that these callers that are calling you are operating illegally, and one more violation of the law really doesn't, unfortunately, bother them. Understand the National Do Not Call Registry is designed to stop legitimate businesses from calling people who say they don't want to receive calls. The registry is what the telemarketers use, and it cannot actually block any of the calls. And so scammers, unfortunately, don't care if you're on the registry. However, if you are on the registry and you receive a call, it is really important that you send your complaint to our office, because that, as General Ferguson stated, is a violation of our Washington state consumer protection laws. And if we receive complaints about this, then we can try and go after these individuals. Now, I saw that the question specifically said this person was maybe coming from in-state, and that is particularly important to provide these complaints, since we are more likely to find the robocallers or the bad actors if they are within our state. The example of the case involving the air duct cleaning company that General Ferguson referred to was actually a company that was located in the state of Washington, and they were also calling people on the do not call list, and we were able to find them because they were in the state and prosecute them. And so that is really to answer your question directly, that's how we give more bite to the do not call list, is by letting our offices and also the the FTC offices know when individuals are violating the law, and we can try and find them. And if we do, we will definitely be prosecuting them.
Thank you, Mina. We appreciate that. Aaron, here's one for you. Emmett asks us, yesterday I received a suspicious call. When I answered, I was asked, how was I doing? And when I answered that I was fine, the caller hung up. I'm concerned that the word fine was recorded to indicate that I agreed to something that I didn't actually agree to. Is that possible?
Sure. So there's two pieces. So the first part is, don't worry. We've never seen any evidence where, if you say yes, it's kind of like an old, called in Yiddish, right? A Baba Mitzvah, right? Like it's from my grandmother's time that like all of a sudden you're kind of caught and you said yes, and they're going to go in and cram you or put charges on your credit card. We haven't ever seen that happen. So the first part is, don't worry. Saying fine or yes to a robocaller is not the end of the world. The second part, when you say, actually, they said, hi, how are you? We call these avatar robocallers. So what this is usually it's an overseas call center where there's operators that are sitting behind a computer and they have buttons to push, and there's recorded sounds. So the person will sound like they have a Southern accent, or, you can't hear the call center in the back. So exactly that, when you heard the person say, hi, how are you? That was actually just a recording, and you would have been pushed on down. Now, two things. When you said fine, right, they might have been trying to target people that were older. So the person that was listening might have heard that you sounded, your voice was a little bit younger, said, we're not going to waste our time. The other explanation is that their technology is so rickety, right? It can be so bad, just needs to go and blow out calls everywhere, that at that point they push the wrong button or something got canceled and cut it out. Yeah, a lot of stuff could happen. Don't worry about it. In that case, it's perfectly, again, if we can say anything, if anybody calls you up and says, how are you? Hang up.
Great advice. And thank you, Aaron. That's a relief. Okay, this next question, this is for Doug. Roger's asking, I've been getting text messages from my phone company saying, thank you, and here's a gift. I never clicked on them, thinking they were probably somebody trying to get information. Did I do the right thing?
Yes. Aaron will talk about this, that the amount of fraudulent texting that is going on, it's almost not exactly replacing robocalling, but it's augmenting it in a big way. And you get these texts that have a link, you click on the link and bad things happen. It's just worth completely deleting. One thing that can happen is they can take you to a phishing website to get whatever the free prize was or the discounted phone call or whatever. You enter your information, and that's what they're in it for, to try and capture your personal identifying information so that they can try and steal your identity. Aaron, you had another thought about that. We were talking about the other day, that the other bad thing that can happen if you click on that, I can't remember what it is now. There's the phishing site thing, but is something intrinsically bad about clicking on that? Like, can it download a virus or something if you do that? I forget what you were telling me.
Yeah, so the good news there also is that they are usually very untechnological. We see this a lot where it's a text message from USPS, right, Postal Service, or an Amazon package, right? They're spoofing that name. They're doing trademark infringement and everything. When you click on it, effectively, it just opens up a ridiculous, like, prize wheel kind of garbage. But in general, the chance of getting like a virus or something installed on your phone is very, very low. So if you do click on it, right? But what's kind of drives me nuts, as you even said, is that my carrier is giving me a free gift, right? And I'm just thinking, I was like, okay, well, if something offers you a free gift, right, don't take it. But it's crazy. Even we see like the Red Cross blood donation phone calls say that they'll give you a free Amazon gift card. So it's really kind of one of those things, like how companies do that all the time, right? I just signed up for YouTube TV and my carrier had to send me a link over there. How are you supposed to know this? You're not, right? That's our job as technologists, to protect people. But it's crazy out there. These questions are exactly where the problem is right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Aaron. And Mina, we're back to you. Brian is asking if I have a cell phone number with an area code outside the state of Washington. Can I also make a robocall complaint at the Washington Attorney General's office?
Yes. Short answer first is yes. And I actually think I saw a question in the chat that was asking if someone is calling to you from out of state, can I make that complaint as well? Yes. Our statutes protect, Washington consumers, but also protect you from calls that are coming from outside of the state. I want to make a point though about we've been talking a lot about sending your complaints to us, but really what that should include. And first of all, it's important that you provide your complaint as soon as possible. You might be wondering, if it's is it somebody that we could find, or we can track them down, trace them down. That's only possible, if we find out about it, really soon. There's some avenues that we can use for that. It's really important that you provide the telephone number of the caller. We obviously, can't, trace back anything if we don't even know the telephone number. So be sure to, as soon as you get that call, write down the telephone number, and then look at the clock and write down the exact time you got the call. That's something that's really important, and it can be hard to go back and try and think when that happened. And then also take note about whether this call was actually a recorded message or if it was a live caller. We've been talking about a little bit about both today. There's specific laws that you can't send robocalls if you haven't provided consent to the person who's sending you the robocall. And then there's also just trying to find those individuals who are, live callers, who are more fraudulent actors, or just trying to steal your money or identity, as opposed to perhaps a robocall from a company that's just promoting a product or a service. So information specific to whether this was a recorded message that you received, or if it was somebody who was calling you who was like a live caller, would be really important. Yeah.
Great tips, Mina. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And Aaron, it looks like we're back to you with a question from Grizel. I forward all scam texts to AT&T, and I click on the Google Mail spam icon to report suspicious emails. Are these email providers and cell phone companies actually able to investigate these and make progress in stopping scammers? It seems to be getting worse, not better.
Yeah, the simple answer is yes, right? And you should only see the stuff that doesn't get through, and if there wasn't anything that the carriers are doing to that. But nothing is perfect. Even our own product stuff skips through. So the simple answer is yes. Forwarding it to, I think it's the short code is spam. Sending it to AT&T. Will it eradicate any of this? No way. It's one tool that will go towards helping. Reporting it to the FTC, will it stop? No, but it does help them do investigations. It gives signals and things like that. Obviously, use some technology to protect yourself, forward it over there, and just know that there's no one magic bullet over here that's going to do everything, that's just going to go and solve it. Every little thing counts,
including reporting to the Attorney General's office, etc. So thank you. Great tips there. Doug, Rudolph asks, how can we remove our phone numbers and emails from the dark web?
Yeah. The short answer is you can't. I'm sorry. This is sort of a pet peeve of mine, because there are some companies out there that are offering to, remove if you sign up with us and pay the fee, we'll check and see if you're on the dark web. We interviewed a guy and worked with a guy named Brett Johnson, who still works with AARP. This was a couple of years ago, but he's still a speaker for us, who claims to be the original internet godfather, one of the first people to start a dark website in the early 2000s. And one of the things we did, my partner, Bruce Carlson, and I, who's sitting right next to me here, and he took us on a tour of the dark web, because he was saying, I can buy anybody's birth date and social security number for $3 on the dark web. And he took us on to the dark web, and I didn't believe him. So I'm like, well, look up my wife. Sure enough, there it was. He found it. You can't, part of the reason why these companies can't tell definitively if your information's on the dark web is because so much of it is behind a paywall. You have to pay to get it. But I've been saying for years that everyone's identity has already been stolen. You just should assume that your personal information is already out there somewhere. And this is why we have spent so much time coaching people to monitor their accounts, to simplify, go down to one credit card if you can, one checkbook. Why? Because you and monitor them daily, because your information is already out there. Millions and millions of data breaches have happened already. So I think the short answer is you can't really get it removed. There's some things you can do. You know, there's these data aggregation sites like Been Verified and Truth Finder and so forth that you can pay $16 a month and find a lot of information out about people. You can go onto those sites and tell them to opt out of reporting your information, and they will. They will just not report when somebody tries to look you up. That's one thing you can do. And the other thing I think is the best thing you can do is just monitor your accounts.
Thank you, Doug. Well, it's a relief that we can ask those companies to remove our information, because it sounds like our information is out there.
Yep.
Okay, Mina, I have a question from Audrey for you. I no longer get robocalls after getting rid of my home phone, but I get lots of phishing emails about many of the same scams. Can you follow the same steps for emails as you do for robocalls, like notify the AG's office?
Yeah, a lot of the same laws that apply, consumer protection laws that apply to illegal robocalls and any other fraudulent telephone related activity also apply to emails. There are also a lot of separate laws, federal laws that make it illegal for sending emails that are unwanted, fraudulent. So you can follow the same sort of procedure in also just the same thing you would do with, let's say if it was like a text message, just delete it, block it, don't, respond to it. And one thing I'd actually note, I think is a good tip for if you see that there's any phone numbers in that email, and that's the thing is sometimes you don't know, it might be from a legitimate source or not. It might look like it's from Amazon or some other reputable company. Don't ever click on the phone number links or, in the emails. I would always go to the company's actual website, go to Amazon's website and call their phone number there, not from the email, just to be sure that that's not the scammer's telephone number that's being put in the emails.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mina. Always good to go to the source if you aren't sure. Go to the original company. Thank you. Let's see. I believe I have one here for Aaron from Carol. What happens when I press 9 as instructed to be removed from the call list? Does that actually work, or am I making things worse by responding?
So the best case scenario, nothing happens. The worst case scenario, right? You're put on a list of, they now know that your number is working, that you are a person who listens to the entire message, and that, if I was running the criminal enterprise, I would put your number at the top of the list and keep bombarding you with these kinds of things. And we hear this all. So yeah, don't push 9. We hear this also that once the scammers have kind of infiltrated, if they get a victim, they keep calling that person back. And the neighbor that I was telling you about, she got scammed out of $1,500, and then they called her back 3 times over the next couple of days. Right? They know that they have a victim, so now they're going to try and get more and more money. So in this case, if they have somebody who they know it's a live number, they pick up, they listen to the message, and they respond, worst case scenario, you're going to get way more calls. Just don't do it. Hang up.
I think I'm picking up on a theme here. Do not respond. Do not respond. Do not respond. And report. It's worthwhile. So thank you.
And you mentioned that, maybe it's just like, again, like Washingtonians are much friendlier than the rest of the country. Right here in New York, we have no problem hanging up, right? That's fine. But you guys are so nice. And look, these are criminals. They're bothering you. You didn't ask for any of the, I'm not saying you have to go and curse them out, but just hang up. It's perfectly fine. Be polite to your friends and family. Leave these guys alone.
Absolutely. Great advice. Okay, Doug, we have one for you. Discover Card called me. My phone registered their number, so I felt sure it was them. The subject of the call was suspicious, though, so I didn't answer her questions about my personal info. I contacted Discover's fraud unit, and they told me the caller was likely a fraud. How did the caller call me from Discover's phone number?
Yeah, that's a really good question. This is something we haven't talked much about today, but Aaron and I love to talk about this, and probably the AG folks too. You cannot rely on caller ID to know who is calling you. It's just too simple to fake the number. We did this exercise a couple years ago where I downloaded an app. It's called Spoof Card, I think. For $5, it allows me to call anybody I want to. We did this demonstration. One of my colleagues, I think it was you, Bruce, was on this across the hall, and I was going to pretend to be Bruce's granddaughter from an airport saying that I just lost my wallet and you need to wire me money. Because this app has, two lines. What's the number you're calling? Then the second line is, what's the number you want to show up on the caller ID of the person you're calling? And you can put any number you want in there. You can put the Social Security Administration, Discover Card, whatever. And then it had another feature that would allow me to change my voice from being a man to a woman. And so we did this demonstration where I'm just like, hi, this is your it's just that simple. And so the caller did the person on the phone here did the right thing by not giving personal information. If you get a call like that, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, any of the common companies that are commonly spoofed, do what the questioner did, which is to hang up the phone and independently contact the company and see if there's a problem. That's exactly the right thing to do. But I just wanted to give you my pitch in there about caller ID. Unfortunately, you just cannot rely. And Aaron taught me a couple years ago about this neighbor spoofing. I had no idea. Now I guess everybody knows about it. But what the robodialers realized is that if the caller ID has the same area code and the same prefix as your number, you automatically trust it more. And the pickup rate is 50% higher. And so that's the spoofing that's going on right now. It's called neighbor spoofing. And I get those calls all the time. I'm like, oh, look, it's someone from Burien. No, it isn't. It's one of those credit card interest rate things. So.
Thank you, Doug. And a quick follow-up here from Mina. I think we've established that we should be reporting robocalls to the Attorney General's office, but there's certain types of calls we should report and others that it's not necessary to report?
Yeah. So I don't know if we didn't have really a breakdown of, let's talk about robocalls specifically. There's maybe about like 3 kinds of robocalls. You get robocalls that are just, notifications about something, your flight's delayed or, something. Those are, obviously not illegal. Maybe some of them might be annoying. Maybe you didn't want to receive them. Those aren't illegal. Then there's 2 others. The other second one is, like I mentioned before, telesales. It's actually a company, a dubious company. They might have some sort of product. Whether that product is actually useful, whether you actually need or want that product, it's another question. So they're promoting their service or their product. And then the third is, like I said, just this flat out fraud, where the caller is just trying to get your money or your identity, or they're what we call phishing types of calls. So the telesales calls, please report those, especially because a lot of those calls will probably indicate exactly who it is, what company it is that's calling. Now, we don't get those as much anymore because a lot of those companies have realized it's not they don't get good response. People aren't really happy to receive their advertisement in a robocall, but some companies still do. And it's really important that you report those. A lot of these companies might be getting your phone number from lists that they've purchased, or maybe from a website that you might have gone to, you might have clicked, yeah, send me a call, or you might not have. And if these companies didn't actually receive your consent to send you those robocalls, then those are illegal, and we can find these individuals and we can stop them. So those are really important calls to report to our office. Then fraudulent calls, those ones are a lot harder. They're usually foreign-based, like you've heard all about during today's presentation. But we can still do work to try and stop those types of cases, especially by stopping the telecom providers that allow those calls to enter into the United States. And the only way we're going to be able to find out where those calls are coming from is if we have your complaints that provide the information that I talked about before, giving us the telephone number, the exact time of the call, and being really prompt with those. And if we get those, we will look into them. And if we can track down or do something about it, we will. So thanks.
Thank you, Mina. And a follow-up to that, this person was asking, where do I report them? And I see that in our resources tab, that is a red circle at the bottom of your screen that looks like two pieces of paper. There is a link to the Washington State Office of the Attorney General. And on that homepage is a link for reporting. That's atg.wa.gov. Again, atg.wa.gov. Okay, so let's check and see additional questions here. Okay, we have one for Aaron. This one says, if I sign up for a robocall blocking service, how do you make sure that all the legitimate calls get through? Calls from people like my doctor's office or emergency services or my kid's school.
Yeah, this is the number one question, right? So keeping the bad callers out is really important, but more importantly is letting the good callers get through. Again, especially in times like these, right? You need when COVID first came out, we had to work overtime to make sure that all of the notifications, again, school closings, office closings, they were actually getting through. So our allowed robocaller listing, and I can only speak for my company, right, is over almost 60,000 known numbers that are good robocallers. So your insurance agent needs to get through to you, your kid's school, your doctor's office, every CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, right, every pharmacy. So the best that I can say is most of the call blockers have a free trial. Take each one for a spin, make sure that it's allowing the good calls through, the bad ones staying out. And overall, especially on mobile, we call these false positives in the business, right? That it blocked it when it wasn't supposed to. The worst case that will happen on mobile is they're going to leave you a voicemail, which happens all the time, right? You might be, hanging out with your family or watching TV. You just don't answer the phone. You decline it. The exact same thing happens. So on mobile, it's not really as big of a concern. It's way more concerning to me to make sure that people are protected from the scammers.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And we have time for one more. This one is for you, Doug. Susan asks, it sure seems like many of the robocall pitches hit pretty close to home. Yesterday, I received the Amazon alert one right when I was actually expecting a delivery. Are they watching my activity online and targeting me specifically?
I hate to jump in here, but spoiler alert, everyone is waiting for an Amazon delivery.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't remember that you ordered one, like, right, Aaron? Aaron, what is it called? Amazon-nesia. Amazon-nesia.
But again, that's what's happening. Yeah. That's what's happening with these scammers, right? Every single person, I can almost guarantee you that the 1,000 or 1,200 people that are watching us right now, every single one of us has ordered something from Amazon within the last couple of days. And the scammers are going to use that to your advantage. One of the questions we had before about having Verizon. There are hundreds of millions of people that have Verizon, right? There's 3 cell phone carriers, right? There is, a handful of banks. This is not a difficult thing. They don't need to be very sophisticated here. They can send it on, this is Bank of New York. This is Bank of America. If you don't have it, you're just going to be like, that's an obvious scam. But somebody who has Bank of America, Discover card, right? I don't have a Discover card, but if I got one of those, okay, I'd know it, but the other people wouldn't. This is how they work.
Well, I think the genius of the Amazon one too, and that is, you'll see this in all the top 10 lists, Amazon phishing, is because so many of us are really actively engaged. I'm not necessarily actively engaged with my bank, but I'm actively engaged with Amazon just like everybody else. And so it's believable when somebody calls posing as Amazon and there's something about your delivery because I just ordered something,
That's exactly right. And also the one that's happening now, usually with the Amazon one, is they'll say that there's a high value transit. You just bought an iPhone or something where there's been a $1,000 charge to your Amazon account. Oh, we just have to refund the money. We'll fix it. That's entirely plausible that Amazon could call you up, that could have happened, and they just want to verify it and then put the money back in your account. You could totally see how then somebody would get down that rabbit hole. Again, these guys are really good at what they do, and there is no shame in it. And that's why, again, thank everybody on this call who's listening, everybody who's organized it, for getting the word out. It really is more important now than ever to make people aware of these things.
And thank you, Aaron, and also Mina. And before Doug makes some closing remarks, just want to mention, if you'd like to hear more about topics we talked about today, other topics such as brain health, home fit, how to prepare for caregiving. We have a speakers bureau ready and available to give presentations to your community. And you can find them at www.aarp.org/Washington Speakers Hub. That's also in your resources tab. So let me turn this back over to Doug for some closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Ann, and thank you for agreeing to do this great facilitation of our Q&A. Ann is one of those speakers on the Speakers Bureau, so you can request her specifically. I would encourage you to do that if you want to, and she speaks on a number of different topics. I just want to thank everybody, Attorney General Ferguson, and also Aaron and Mina for their time today. This is an important topic. This is one of the most well-attended virtual events we've had since the pandemic started. You can see how people find it relevant. I also want to thank, in addition to Ann O'Callaghan, we have a number of other volunteers who have helped today. Kim Tomlinson, Pat Johnson, staffing the phone lines. Also, Mike Kulik, who's with our national office, is our guru for this particular platform. Jason Erskine, Ashley Aiken, Carla Pack, Christina Clem, Amanda Frame, Kathy McCall. This is an all hands on deck. Crystal Bell, and of course, Bruce Carlson, who's sitting here right next to me, telling me to close this out because we're over time. But it took a lot of people to put this together. I want to thank all of you. And just in closing, go to, if you get a chance, aarp.org/tipoffs to see all the additional updated information about robocalls that are coming into your community. You can also get access to a video called Turning the Tables on the Scammers. That'll be in the resources tab, but we're also going to send you an email for everybody who has attended today, which will give you access to those and other materials. Thanks to all of you for attending the session today, for sticking with us in overtime. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you share this information with your friends and family members, and that you can avoid being scammed. Have a great day.